is called Abu Sir, and it's a site of great antiquity that has dynastic works as well as evidence of lost ancient high technology, which would in fact be older than any of the dynastic works. Again, it's called Abu Sir, and it needs special permission, which we were able to get in order to visit it. This is at Abu Sir itself, and as you can see, it's been terribly decimated over the course of time from invading armies, people simply using the ancient site as a quarry. And here you see pillars, which are made of granite. Granite itself came from Aswan, which is likely 500 miles away. And we also see evidence, and abundant evidence, in this location, especially of strange drill holes in very hard stone, which again could not have been done by the dynastic Egyptians. These are tube drill holes which would have to at least be embedded with diamonds in order to achieve such size and such depth. So the mystery is, who was the culture that had technology of this level thousands of years before our time, thousands of years before the time of the dynastic Egyptians? So here you see the level of the devastation of invading cultures and armies. Such a sad sight to see. However, there is also evidence that a massive cataclysm of some kind struck this site actually prior to dynastic times. The timeline we're looking at is 12,000 years ago. Look at the weird erosion on these limestone posts as if they were burned by something.
Yo, what's up?
And also these amazing granite stone boxes, one which is shattered, but the other is almost intact. In order to get at them, you have to go down through this hole, down this chute. Now the crispness of the edges and the flat surfaces could not have been achieved with hand tools. So we are looking at some form of advanced technology being employed in order to shape these surfaces. The edges are incredibly crisp after thousands of years, and the curved surfaces are perfectly curved. There are no depressions, no protrusions. So again, it's a mystery as to who did this work, but that's why we encourage you to come with us in March of 2018 and see for yourself. Again, we have these strange, heavily eroded surfaces.
So here at Abu Sir, what I've been showing is the fact that in general, this site is dynastic. Everything lines up north, south, east, and west. However, there are pre-dynastic elements here that are 23 degrees off north, south, east, and west. And that goes along with my theory about a massive cataclysm happening here in the Giza Plateau area 12,000 years ago. The main adage from this cataclysm seems to be here in what is more or less the center of the ancient land called Bu Wizard, or the land of Osiris. And then when we go south and north, the damage becomes less and less. At one end you have Dashur with the bent pyramid and the red pyramid. The skin of the pyramid is sloughed off. And then the other direction, you go to the Giza Plateau, same thing. The three great pyramids are still there, generally intact, but the skin or casing stone is missing. Yeah. Well, you see all the saw marks in this?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what that means, bro.
So those saw marks that you saw would require diamond level of technology, because the stone is basalt or possibly even a harder siltstone of some kind. And that's not something, as you know by now, that the dynastic Egyptians had. So they clearly inherited ancient sites that appear to have been devastated by some cataclysmic activity. And that, of course, is recounted in my book, Aftershock.
What we can see here is clear marking of a circular giant saw. We can see from the pattern here that it's circling, and we can see that the lines also are all continuing in a circular, not a straight line. And when we talk about if we complete this circle, it's not going to be less than 8 meters, right?
Yeah.
Cannot be less than 8 meters.
It was at least 20 feet in diameter and 3/16 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
And it's penetrated the stone 2 millimeters per revolution, which is 500 times more efficient than what we have in the 21st century.
Yeah. So again, no scenes on the walls displayed any method of cutting the soles using a saw. We only understood this from the marking of the stone on the from the marking of the tool on the surface of the stone. Also, if we want to know how thick that tool was, we can look here from the corner, and you can see part that is still curving back on the higher part here.
Joe Rogan fell into a volcano? Yeah, right.
That will tell us how thick this blade was, which was probably around 4 millimeter thick. That's huge to take this kind of machining, the heat, the scratches from circling. So we don't believe copper can be able to do this. We cannot see also the scenes, but we want to make more like experiments about this type of stone. And
another obvious question is, where does this stone come from? And according to our geologist, Susan Moore, and according to the Geology Museum in Cairo, the Eastern Desert, a deposit at least 200 kilometers away. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe as you look at another ancient saw mark using some level of high technology. And come with us to Egypt in March of 2018. Being there is 1,000 times more interesting than looking at this video or looking at photos of the evidence. Being there makes a huge difference.
Why is there so much effort to silence our voices? Change. When we vote, things get better. When we vote, we address the need for all people to be treated with dignity and respect in our country. So each of us
Joe
needs
Rogan
a plan.
dead. That shit's stupid. 5 hours ago, Trump randomly agrees to an extra debate with Biden if Joe Rogan is the moderator. Yeah, he can't be dead if he's going to be a presidential moderator.
A term that you might not have heard before, hyperfunnels. That's because I created the term. Like Kurt said, I've been pretty much into creating stuff.
he's a man. I've heard Brian Forster many times. And when I'm home and I watch him on television, all of a sudden I realize I'm taking notes in my house with a paper and pencil because he has so much to say on a constant basis. I'm enthralled with his knowledge, his expertise, and his fundamental manner. He's amazing. He was born in the U.S., but he went to Spain. After that, he had a fascination with native art. And he graduated from the university, but he does a passion for this art of the indigenous people. And he became a professional.
Definitely not an impulse buy.
How many people do you know that do that?
Motherfucking tools.
And then he moved when he was a little older to Maui. And he spent 2 years working with Hawaiian people.
Motherfucking tools, bro.
There was a 62-foot double hull sail catamaran. Again, who do you know that does that?
So, I have. So yeah, I designed this, and I already have the first shipment in production now. My first order here, this week or next week, hopefully.
Egypt, Lebanon.
But since it is a brand new product and I am a small business, I will be packaging and shipping out said product myself. In order to package and ship things, I'm going to have to put these in a bag. Bags very similar to this. The easiest way to make these bags...
Actually, 36.
36. I love it.
The easiest way to make these bags is to get one long strip of plastic like this and cut it and seal it in yourself. Cut and seal, cut and seal. And this is what this machine will do. And this will help me make packaging bags that I can cut and seal myself. And do most of this stuff in-house. So I'm just buying all the stuff that I need. I have bags, I have stickers, I have labels, I have a machine that will seal bags. And I have my product on the way, so trying to make all the profit I can. Why would I ship it to someone else and have them package it for me when I can just, package it myself? So this machine is a impulse sealer. It works from low levels of heat to seal the bags, and yeah, it plugs in, so no batteries or anything, and I am in business. Can't wait to get this shit started. I just showed it to you, bro. So most artists keep brushes in something like this when they're not using brushes. You just store your brushes like this. But it's very hard, like personally me, I like to work with several brushes while I'm painting. I'll have like 5 different brushes that I'm using at the same time while I'm painting. But if you have a bunch of wet brushes, it's hard to set them down, without paint getting everywhere or paint getting, cross-colored and mixed up. And then if you have 3 or 4 wet brushes, you definitely don't want to like stick wet brushes back in here. So I designed this out of a piece of cardboard, which essentially allows you to have a wet brush. You can put paint on the brush, And you don't have to clean the brush off if you still want to come back to this same wet brush with the same color. Say, oh, I need to switch colors for a minute to do this spot. Okay, so you take your wet brush and you just set it there. And it's not touching anything, it's not going to get in the way, it's not going to, get paint on everything. Then you have this brush, and this has the blue paint on it. But you don't want to wash the blue paint off because you still need the blue paint, so you set that there. And then you can set several brushes down at the same time while they're wet and easily access them, paint with it, set it back down, pick this one up, use this one. And so I thought this is just a much easier way to work with brushes, and so I did that out of cardboard. I showed the design to a friend of mine, and he actually made this out of plastic. This is like a PVC or polyvinyl chloride type product, very stiff, very firm and sturdy, and it just looks more professional than a cardboard cutout. So yeah, so I use this a lot. Even like I said, if you don't want to keep your brushes in a cup like that, I just have a bunch of other brushes. They're not technically in the slots, but they're still able to sit here, and you can still have easier access to them. They're all laid out. The bristles aren't going to get messed up like this, and so when you want to grab one, you can take from the big pile and move it over to your work pile here. Use this brush, put it back. Works very well. So I had 200 of these made. Boozy, what's good, bro? So I found a water jet company that uses CNC machines to cut out different shapes and designs. They had the cheapest price that I can find, and they said they can absolutely make this product for me. So ordered 200 of them, and while the products are being made, while the products are getting made, I've just been trying to get everything else I need so that I can sell the product. So yeah, just got my impulse sealer. Probably try that out a little bit later. I ordered some packaging bags to start with, and they weren't the right size. So I may take some of these bags and just practice on them and make sure I know how to use the sealer properly. Okay, so I can do that later this evening or tomorrow or sometime. But we're gonna work on this commission for about an hour or so. This is an after work stream, so I won't be in here that long. The last time I painted was 9/11. I was in art class when I found out. I didn't start painting until years after 9/11, but I was 19. I was 19 years old when 9/11 happened, and I was about to be enlisted into the United States Army. And I was roughly 2 weeks from being sworn in, where you actually go and you say a little pledge and take your oath and sign your name away to the government. Like, I was 2 weeks out from that shit. Like, really signing myself in to the military. And 9/11 happened. And after that day, I just never answered a call from my recruiter ever again. Like, it was like that whole period up until then is what made me consider going into the military, because like I said, I was 19, high school dropout. I did acquire my GED, but I really wasn't doing a lot. And knowing that I had a lot of potential, I just was trying to figure out the easiest and cheapest way to get a degree in engineering or biochemistry or uh, something, a degree in something that could give me a better opportunity at a career path. And so I was like, fuck it, the military is it. I can just go in there and let these motherfuckers talk shit to me, whatever, train, try to, program me to be this mindless killer or whatever. But at the same time, my main objective was just like education. Okay, whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do it. Just put me in a school. Let me have access to a university where I can earn a degree. But even even that, like, I was like, fuck all of that. I'm not, after 9/11, like, yo, we're going to fucking war. You're not about to send me to some fucking desert and get blown up or put me in a scenario where I have to kill somebody. Like, I wasn't with that shit, yo. Uh, Not really. Was I good at painting? No, not really. I was always good at drawing, but I never really tried to paint, like, other than like high school projects. I never like painted outside of school by myself until I was in my like mid late 20s is actually when I started painting. Yep. But now painting is about the only thing that I do. I don't do much else of anything else, just paint all the time. I play video games a lot too. I still have a regular job, but like in my free time, my spare time is mostly dedicated towards my art. I don't watch a lot of TV or movies, don't watch any sports. I'm not really an outdoorsy nature type guy. I'll go on hikes and walks sometimes, but that's not like my big thing. I don't do a lot of other shit. I just like being in my studio, making some beautiful art. So I've been fortunate to have like commission work all year, like uh, for the past 5 months. I've been like almost doing strictly commission work, getting and people are paying what I ask, so it's pretty good. And I have a mural project coming up where me and my team we might be able to get about $3,000 a piece off of this mural, and that's after like supplies and all of that shit, yo. Breakdown, we still probably come out with about 3 grand a piece. Trying to do that shit, and then plus have like my first mural in the city that I'm really recognized in, and to have a big public art display like that should be excellent on my resume. But like I said, this is an after work stream, so I just really want to get into this painting real quick. I ain't gonna sit here and run my mouth too much. Happy as hell my little package came. I got that. Like I say, we're working on the commission of this gentleman here. If I'm not mistaken, the client said that this is for a friend of his. So the person who ordered this piece is not actually for them. He's getting it done as a gift. Is that? I don't know what that is, but Damn, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to clean off my palette before I can start. Well, at least it's not too dirty. I got most of the paint off, I guess. I can just scrape this off and load my colors up, and then we can get right into this portrait session.
I love her. Put me to shame.
Listening to some Brian Forrester. He's a archaeologist and researcher of ancient lost civilizations and high technology. One of the main guys that I hear talk about this stuff and describes it the way that he does, and actually like legitimately visits all of the sites that he talks about, and he gets firsthand video footage, and he does really extensive research on the areas and a history of the areas, and he gives you a nice, concise information and explanations of what he assumes to be a lost civilization. A civilization that is so old that we cannot remember. No one alive can really remember this civilization other than through myths and legends, and it's where we get a lot of our religions from. Kind of. And it's weird because he has never, like, I've listened to hours and hours of his lectures and talks and stuff, and he never once said anything about genetic panspermia or planet until recently. I listened to him on someone's podcast, a guy I never heard of. The only reason I watched it because Brian Forrester was on it, and I'm like, okay, well, he's talking to this guy. Let me see what he says here. And the guy asked him, like, do you believe in ancient aliens? And Brian said, you know what? He's like, he said, well, I can't word it exactly how he said it, but he said recently in the past few years, he has been giving the ancient alien idea a lot more focus. That maybe there was, some type of interstellar civilization that was able to traverse the stars and came here and structured and set up a global civilization, but the earth went through some type of cataclysm that caused the planet to be uninhabitable for a certain amount of time, so they basically abandoned the planet. And the few remnants and survivors who actually came from that, all we have is these legends of like a global flood and gods that came from the sky or from the stars to the earth who were able to do things that the humans couldn't do. And so these stories are really, really persistent. But at the same time, too, like, I used to give a lot of credit to the ancient alien theory just because it does sound so cool. But at the same time, like, once you say aliens did it, then you're saying humans could not have done it. And I really think that humans did create all of these megalithic structures. I think humans were intelligent enough to build a vast global civilization without the need from some tall grays or pure whites or whatever type of alien, or the lizard people or whatever, the Anunnaki. I mean, Elon Musk even said more than likely we're living in a simulation. But then it's a simulation where we create simulations, and so now it's you get into this Inception type scenario where, you know, is the creators of our simulation, are they actually a part of the substrate, or are they running on a simulation themselves? And then their simulation became so realistic that they created a simulation. Because even in our reality, our capabilities are growing exponentially, where I can imagine in 50 years we will have a virtual reality simulation which would be indistinguishable from real reality. Once again, Elon Musk just debuted his prototype for the Neuralace device, which is a direct brain interface, in 2020. So in the year 2060, where would that technology be? In the year 2100, where would that technology be? In the year 2121, how far advanced will this technology be to the point where you cannot distinguish reality from virtual reality? But the simulation theory carries over into all different aspects, even into the religious. If you are a religious person and you really believe in the Bible and stuff like that, then you by default believe in the simulation hypothesis, because the ultimate goal is to get to heaven, and heaven isn't a part of this reality, it's a part of a different reality where God is, and God is the creator of this reality. So God actually created a simulation and placed you in it, back to the real world where God is at. So any theist has to believe that this world is only a simulation, it's not the real world, it's just a test to see if you can make it to the real world. Yeah, but that's the thing. We can't prove God. We can't prove simulations. It's all theories and hypotheses, which are cool. You throw a little bit of science and philosophy in there, you got full conversations and debates for ages to come. Yeah, and that's the thing that most people hate. to come to the ultimate conclusion that, you know, there is no real answer for it. Yo, Akron, what's up? That there is no real answer. It all boils down to we don't know. You know, until there is definitive, demonstrable proof of anything. Like, we just don't know. Science has helped us a lot, and we've gotten really good at this shit, at understanding our physical reality and the limitations of it, and that's awesome. But beyond that, anything that's metaphysical or extra physical or spiritual, like, that shit is hard to touch. You know what I'm saying? Literally. Even intangible things like what is consciousness? You know, that's another ultimate question. Like, we still can't even figure out, you know, why we are aware that we are aware. Yeah. So it's always fun shit though. Fun times.
And the other thing I wanted to say is he's appeared in Ancient Aliens many times, and he has explored more than 90 countries. It is with a great deal of honor to Mr. Brian Forster. This is the best part.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Today what we're going to be looking at are megalithic structures in different parts of the world that I have been to. And I think that's important because some people do YouTube videos of places they've actually never been. And you don't really learn that much from pictures as compared to being on location. So what we're going to be looking at is ancient structures that show cataclysmic damage, not damage from an army coming in or something like that, but natural forces that destroy these sites. And the timeline we're looking at for these cataclysms is 12,000 years ago, which is the end of the last ice age. So, does anyone know where this is? Machu Picchu, that's right. I've been to Machu Picchu 69 times, and I'm always looking at the stonework. So what you can see here is you see that line, and notice the work on top is quite crude, and the work below is polygonal interlocking blocks. So some people would say, well, the Inca made a very strong foundation, and then they didn't need to make so good on top, but that's not the case. The Inca found, the Inca found Machu Picchu, decided that it was a holy site, and then they built their city around it. And this is the obvious evidence of that, because you see massive megalithic blocks on the bottom, pulled apart from east to west by a huge earthquake, and this is what the Inca found, and then they built on top. So you notice the difference in construction? It'll get more and more obvious as time goes on. And also Machu Picchu means the ancient mountain, or the ancient place. So they wouldn't be describing that if they had built the whole thing. They found it, and then they built there. Now there are flood myths from 200 to 400 indigenous cultures that talk about the time when their world was destroyed. It could have been an island or a larger landmass. And what this coincides with is events that happened during the Younger Dryas between 12,800 and 11,700 years ago. Of course, Graham Hancock goes into this, Randall Carlson goes into this, and it was a major series of cataclysmic events that happened that destroyed most of humanity. And it was a force that came from outside of our solar system. There are different theories. Some people say it's a comet, some people say different things, but we're going to go through all of the theories related to that.
When we see leading ships, we see zero light, because they're going to come up.
So, Plato, of course, with Atlantis. The timeline for the destruction of Atlantis is around 11,700 years ago. So he was describing actual events. Most academics will tell you he made up the story, but Solon, who was his teacher, learned it from the ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians' record of time goes way, way, way back, long before dynastic Egypt. So he described the city, not necessarily a continent, but the city of Atlantis, which was concentric rings like this. And what's great about modern travel and modern research and the internet is that some people believe Atlantis has been found. It's a series of concentric rings like that, and it's located over here in Mauritania. So you can see from here, it's called the Richat structure. And you can see that the land to the west of it looks like it's sloughed off and has gone into the ocean. So it's possible that this is Atlantis that has been found. Not the continent, the city. And this is what it looks like. Plato describes it as having mountains to the north and then the ocean to the west. And there are unknown structures or unresearched structures that are located in this area. I know two people who have recently been there, and you know, who knows, maybe Atlantis has actually physically been found. So I believe what happened around 12,000 years ago is that our planet was hit by a series of cataclysms. And how can we explain properly the reason why our planet is tilted 23.5 degrees? It doesn't sound like that's a natural thing. It should be vertical. And quite possibly, what happened was this impact where the red dot is in Greenland. And that was only discovered a few months ago. You can see right up there where it says the Hiawatha Crater. And that was a meteorite that struck Greenland, and it had the force of something like 1,000,000 times that of the Hiroshima bomb.
Wow.
So that wouldn't simply have affected the local area. It could have shifted the tilt of the planet, and then the planet restabilized at 23.5 degrees. And that's where it's located. As it says, as big as a city. And it left a crater 31 kilometers across. Also, what happened to all the megafauna of North America? At that time, about 12,000 years ago, the megafauna suddenly go extinct. And some people blame the Native Americans, but there were millions of these animals. So the theory is, and the same thing with the woolly mammoths that were found flash frozen in Siberia. One day they're wandering around chewing on buttercups, and the next moment they're flash frozen. And so I think what happened was the planet shifted very rapidly, And that changed their entire climate. They went from being in a temp climate to Arctic, and they would have died immediately. And also ancient civilizations that suddenly disappear around that time period, including the Clovis people. So one theory was by Allen and Dallaire, and they believed that a giant comet broke up and struck the Earth in different places, causing almost total devastation. And the date...
They believe that a giant comet broke up, striking the Earth in different places, causing almost total devastation. And I recently went to the movies and saw a preview for a new film that's called Greenland, where it's that scenario. A giant comet gets in our fucking range, smacks our atmosphere, breaks up, and just start hailing fucking massive ass chunks of comet all over the planet. These shits are coming down like the sizes of buses, the sizes of small states. Basically another 2012 scenario type movie, but it's a comet instead of like a massive earthquake scenario. I definitely gotta watch it though. That's where those subliminals be coming in. Like some of that shit, they be trying to drop real science in there and contingency plans, and they already, the main thing is people trying to get somewhere to shelter and safety. That's the main thing for most of these end of the world scenario movies, is like, okay, how can you survive this? And it's really common knowledge that the elites do have contingency bunkers inside mountains, you know, stories and stories underneath ground to save who they deem is important in case of one of these scenarios. And so that was another major highlight that they showed in the preview of the film, is a family. You know, people already know, like, okay, supposedly there's a bunker here, and just like with the recent Area 51 ambush rush that people were planning, it's a very similar scenario in this, you know, hypothetical situation in this movie. Is like, okay, a lot of people know that there is a bunker located at X location. How are you going to keep everybody the fuck out? And there's this one scene where you see like thousands of people rushing this military installation because they know there's safety there. And how does the military, you know, aren't allowed access into the bunkers? If you do gain access inside the bunker, then what? Are you like some stowaway? Because these things are set up very precisely for specific individuals, rations, time framing, oxygen consumption. So I think that might be the next movie I want to see, is Greenland. What up, though? Working on the second layer for this piece. Gonna start defining the skin tones a lot more. Normally I do 3 layers of paint, so this is gonna be a very dramatic change, but the next layer is normally where you can see the most significant difference from this first few steps of the process. I've had people look at my underpaintings like, that shit sucks. Like, yeah, it's not even near done, dude. Nowhere near done. So I won an award for a museum purchase award recently. One of my paintings is now a part of a museum collection. And my good friend, who doesn't live too far away from here, he won award at the same contest for the best drawing. And he he won first prize in the drawing category, and he said he won the same prize last year. Like, dude, stop it, bro. Stop taking first place every year, man. Let somebody else get that shit, bro. But his shit is amazing. Like, he is literally one of my favorite artists, yo. His work is so good, so good.
BC or 11,500 years ago. I'm just going to use the ballpark figure of 12,000 years. And then also Barbara Hand Clow. She came up with a concept called catastrophobia. And she believed what happened was that the survivors of this massive cataclysm hid in caves in order to protect themselves from another impact coming. And that would be what we call the caveman period. And it took 6,000 years before they were able to come back out again. And that's when we have the rise of Egypt and Samaria and what they called the first major civilizations, but it wasn't. It was a renaissance. Those that survived rebuilt, and they had lost most of the information from the past. So she calls the concept catastrophobia. And then Dr. Paul Laviolette, who is an American physicist, he actually believes that the core of our galaxy, which is a black hole, but it's not a black hole that constantly absorbs energy. Every once in a while, it has a burp, and it actually emits energy. That would go across the galactic plane and wreak havoc. So that's his theory, the same time period, 12,000 years ago. And Robert Schoch, his theory is pretty close to that. He believes in solar outbursts from the sun that came out and scorched the atmosphere and caused the rapid melting of the ice sheets. That was the end of the last ice age. And it didn't occur over thousands of years. He believes it could have been as short as a year, that the waters of the oceans rose by about 400 feet to their present level. That would have submersed ancient civilizations living on any coast. And that again would be the destruction of Atlantis. It wasn't that Atlantis sank, it's that the water rose, and the survivors would have to leave and find somewhere else to live.
Climbs ladders to clean their gutters.
Dad, I keep telling you it's dangerous.
Yeah. So I absorbed all of those theories together to come up with this presentation. So according to Robert Schoch as well, the places where this plasma would have struck would have flash blasted any life form that was there. So the people, the plants, animals would have been vaporized, and these places would not have been habitable for thousands of years, until thousands of years afterwards. And we're not left, we don't have the ancient people left behind because they all got destroyed, but what we do have are these amazing megalithic sites around the world that standard archaeology can't explain, even though they very much try to. So this example here is in Cusco, Peru. It's called the Coricancha, and you can see that you can't fit a human hair in the joints. And that wall is 1 meter thick. So it's perfectly tight fitting from the front to the back. Now the Inca were a Bronze Age culture, and this is basalt stone, so they could not have built this. Obviously they found it. And here too, this is a site called Rachi, outside of Cusco, and you see two forms of construction. You have adobe on top, and then you have megalithic polygonal basalt below. Which is that. So it's quite clear that the Inca found this and then built on top of it. And another location called the Sun Gate. Once again, you see these massive blocks that fit together perfectly, and then relative rubble on top. So this is the Inca work on top of the megalithic. And an even more obvious example. This again is the Coricancha. So what we're looking at, this is the original construction here, perfectly tight fitting. And the Inca show up and they put some of these stones back together, but they can't get them to interlock. And then they build, then they run out of material, so then they build on top of it. And then the Spanish colonial is actually on top of that. And that's what I discovered the first time I went to Cusco, because I've been a builder most of my life. And you see this megalithic stuff, you go, how would we do that? Let alone a Bronze Age culture doing it. And my guide kept saying, no, the Inca did it. It's like, no. And then here we have the first map of Cusco. This was done probably in the 1540s. And you see the thick walls, and then you see the thin walls. The thick walls are the megalithic ones that the Inca found. The thin walls are the Inca repair work. Because Cusco means the center of the world. And so I think that's a description that the Inca found the center of the world. They didn't construct it. And the polygonal work. Every stone a different shape and size, interlocking perfectly. Now that would be incredibly difficult for us to do today. So it's clear that the Inca didn't do this work as well. And then you see the protruding knobs, which are very much a mystery. And here we see the Inca repair work. You see, they tried to put some of the stones back into place, and then they had to use some filler here, and then they ran out of material, so they used other stone in order to reconstruct the site. Is this becoming quite obvious? Good, because archaeologists will fight and fight and fight and say, no, the Inca did everything. It's like, no. But this is what Inca work is. You see, it's very much precision in the front, but there's a gap in the back. That's not that difficult to do. So they wanted their work to harmonize with what they found. And this is Sacsayhuaman. Some of the stones at Sacsayhuaman weigh 125 tons. And they still interlock perfectly. Any gaps are the result of ancient cataclysmic damage. And whoever these ancient builders were, they were also playful. You see here, that's the shape of a puma's paw that they integrated into the shape as they were constructing it. And then you see this really rough work, that's Inca repair work. And this is one of the last Inca palaces that was built, and it's made of adobe, mud, and rough stone. So if the Inca had the capability of doing the polygonal work, the royal Inca would have had a palace made of that. So it's night, and it's not simply shades of gray, it's night and day, the difference in construction style. And now we are at Ollantaytambo, and that is an Inca construction. Once again, you see it's rough stone and adobe mud, and in the same location, we have this. This is also at Ollantaytambo. Those stones are incredibly, some of them weigh 65 plus tons, and the quarry is on top of that mountain. So they had to take the stone down the mountain, across the valley, and up here. Not that simple a feat. So obviously the Inca found this structure, and then they did their construction on the sides. And this makes it obvious. Also, no reconstruction was done after the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors, because any sacred site like this, the Inca were forced to abandon it. So this is like a time capsule we're looking at.